English. 4. Rajam and money. 4. Rajam and money. Reading. This is the story of two boys who met, fought, and finally overcame their anger and became friends. River Sarayu was the pride of Malgudi. Its sandbanks were the evening resort of all the people of the town. The usual evening crowd was on the sand. Swaminathan and Mani sat aloof on a river step with their legs dangling in water. The peepal branches overhanging the river rustled pleasantly. A light breeze played about the boughs and scattered stray leaves on the gliding stream below. Birds filled the air with their cries. Far away, near Nallappa's mango grove, a little downstream, a herd of cattle was crossing the river. And then a country cart drawn by bullocks passed, the cartman humming a low tune. It was some 15 minutes past sunset, and there was a soft red in the west. "The water runs very deep here, doesn't it?" Mani said. "Yes, why?" asked Swaminathan. "I'm going to bring Rajam here, bundle him up and throw him into the river." Rajam was the fresh arrival in the first A. He had sauntered into the class on the reopening day of the second term, walked up to the last bench, sat beside Mani, and felt very comfortable indeed till Mani gave him a jab in the ribs, which he returned. He impressed the whole class on the very first day. He was a newcomer. He dressed very well. He was the only boy in the class who wore socks and shoes, a fur cap, a tie, a wonderful coat, and knickers. He came to school in a car. Besides all this, he proved to be a very good student too. There were vague rumors that he had come from some English boys' school, somewhere in Chennai. He spoke very good English, exactly like a European, which meant that few in the school could make out what he said. Many of his classmates could not trust themselves to speak to him. Only Shankar, the genius of the class, had the courage to face him. Though his English sounded halting and weak before that of Rajam. This Rajam was a rival to Mani. In his manner to Mani, he assumed a certain nonchalance to which Mani was not accustomed. If Mani jabbed, Rajam jabbed. If Mani clouted, he clouted. If Mani kicked, he kicked. And added to all this, Rajam scored well, second only to Shankar. There were sure indications that Rajam was the new power in the class. Day by day, as Mani looked on, it was becoming increasingly clear that a new means had appeared in his life. All this lay behind his decision on the river step to bundle up Rajam and throw him into the river. Swaminathan expressed a slight fear. "You forgot that his father is a police superintendent?" Money remained silent for a while and said, "What do I care? Some night I'm going to crack his shoulders with my club. If I were you, I would keep out of the way of policemen. They are an awful lot," said Swaminathan. "If you were me, but thank God I'm not you. A milk-toothed coward like you," said Money. Swaminathan bit his lips and sighed. "And that reminds me," said the other, "you are in need of a little warning. I find you having about that Rajam a bit too much. Well, have a care of your limbs. That is all I can say." Swaminathan broke into loud protestations. Did Money think that Swaminathan could respect anyone but him? Money, the dear old friend and guide? What made him think so? As far as Swaminathan could remember, he had never been within 3 yards of Rajam. Oh, how he hated him, that vale upstart! When did Money see him with Rajam? Oh, yes, it must have been during the drawing period on Monday. It was Rajam who came and talked to him in spite of the cold face that Swaminathan had turned to him. That ass had wanted a pencil sharpener, which he did not get, as he was promptly directed to go to a shop and buy it if he needed it so urgently. Oh, there was no comparison between Rajam and Money. This pleased Money greatly. For the first time that evening, he laughed and laughed heartily too. He shook Swaminathan and gave him such an unaffectionate twist to his ear that Swaminathan gave a long howl. And then he suddenly asked, "Did you bring the thing that I wanted?" "Oh, Money, I beg 100 pardons of you. My mother was all the time in the kitchen. I could not get it. I referred to lime pickle. You are a nasty little coward." Swaminathan was to act as a cord of communication between Rajam and Money. They were sitting in the first bench. Swaminathan sat between Rajam and Money. Their books were before them on the desk, but their minds were busy. Money wrote on a piece of paper, "Are you a man?" and gave it to Swaminathan, who pushed it across to Rajam, putting on as offensive a look as possible. Rajam read it and hissed into Swaminathan's face, "You scoundrel, don't disturb me," and crumpled the paper note. "Swaminathan, stand up," said the teacher. Swaminathan stood up faithfully. "What is Lisbon famous for?" the teacher said. Swaminathan hesitated and ventured, "For being the capital of Spain." The teacher fired a second question. "What do you know about the Indian climate?" "It is hot in summer and cold in winter," answered Swaminathan. "Stand up on the bench," roared the teacher, and Swaminathan stood up without a protest. He was glad that he was given this supposedly degrading punishment instead of the cane. The teacher resumed his lessons. Africa was a land of forests. Nile was the most important river there. Did they understand? What did he say? He selected someone from the first bench to answer this question. Nile was the most important river in Africa. The boy answered promptly, and the teacher was satisfied. What was the Nile? The most important river in Africa. A boy answered with alacrity and was instantly snubbed for it. For he had to learn not to answer before he was asked to. Silence, silence. Why was there such a lot of noise in the class? Let them go on making a noise and they would get a clean big zero in the examination. He would see to that. Swaminathan paid no attention to the rest of the lesson. His mind began to wander. Standing on the bench, he stood well over the whole class. He could see so many heads and he classified them according to the caps. There were 4 red caps, 25 Gandhi caps, 10 fur caps, and so on. When the work for the day was over, Swaminathan, Mani, and Rajam adjourned to a secluded spot to say what was in their mind. Swaminathan stood between them and acted as the medium of communication. They were so close that they could have heard each other even if they had spoken in whispers. But it was a matter of form between enemies to communicate through a medium. Mani faced Swaminathan steadily and asked, "Are you a man?" Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated, "Are you a man?" Rajam flared up and shouted, "Which dog doubts it?" Swaminathan turned to Mani and said ferociously, "Which dirty dog doubts it?" "Have you the courage to prove that you are a man?" said Mani. Swaminathan turned to Rajam and repeated Mani's question. "How?" asked Rajam. "How?" repeated Swaminathan to Mani. "Meet me at the river near Nalappa's grove tomorrow evening." Near Nalappa's grove, Swaminathan was pleased to echo. "What for?" asked Rajam. They gave Swaminathan no time to repeat their words. Rajam shouted in one ear and Mani in the other. "So we may expect you at the river tomorrow," said Swaminathan. "Yes," Rajam assured them. Mani wanted to know if Rajam would come with guards. No, he would not. And Mani voiced another doubt. "If anything happens to you, will you promise to keep it out of your father's knowledge?" Rajam promised that he would not. Nalappa's grove stood a few yards before them. It was 6:30 and the traffic for the day between the banks was over. Swaminathan and Mani were squatting on the sand. They were silent. Mani was staring at the ground with a small wooden club under his arms. He was thinking, "What if I break Rajam's head in a short while and throw his body into the river? But if it should be recovered, what if Rajam should come and trouble him at night as a spirit? After all, it would be better not to kill him. He would content himself with breaking his limbs and leaving him to his fate. Unless, of course, Swaminathan informed the police." He cast a sly look at Swaminathan, who was blinking innocently. At the sound of the cracking of boots, they turned and found that Rajam had come. He was dressed in khaki and carried under his arm an air gun that was given to him a couple of months before on his birthday. He stood very stiff and said, "Here I am, ready?" "You are late," said Mani. "We will start." Rajam shouldered his gun and fired a shot in the air. Mani was startled. He stood still, his club down. "Why have you brought a gun?" asked Mani. "Why have you brought your club? You never said anything about it yesterday," said Rajam. "What have I done to offend you?" asked Rajam. "You called me a snake before someone," said Mani. There was an awkward pause. "If this is all the cause of your anger, forget it." "I won't mind being friends," Rajam said. "Nor will I," said Mani. Swaminathan gasped with astonishment. In spite of his posing before Mani, he admired Rajam intensely and longed to be his friend. Now this was the happiest conclusion to all the unwanted troubles. He danced with joy. Rajam lowered his gun and Mani dropped his club. To show his goodwill, Rajam pulled out his pocket, half a dozen biscuits. The river's mild rumble, the rustling of the peepal leaves, the half-light of the late evening, and the three friends eating and glowing with new friendship. Swaminathan felt at perfect peace with the world.